Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's InduSoft Web Studio version 8.1 Service Pack 2 update. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Courtier, Senior Technical Sales Consultant with InduSoft. And hopefully we'll get you some good information today. Before I get started, I got to put my little sales hat on here today and show you. We're up again for the Control Engineering Award for 2019. If you're not familiar with Control Engineering Magazine, go to their website, controleng.com. If you are familiar and already registered on their site or a subscriber, please vote for us. No given here because we've won this so many times, but it's no given. We need your vote. We really appreciate it. Even if you're not a subscriber, I believe you can go to their website, log in, register, get their good information. They have great information for controls and HMI and SCADA and that type of stuff. And then the same day that you register, I believe you can even vote right away then. So please vote for us. We'd appreciate it. All right, I'm going to take off my little sales hat here. Somebody asked if is it okay that they only see themselves as an attendee? Yeah. Appreciate the comment. Yeah, you can't see anybody else, but wow, we've got a lot of people signed in. This is one of our more well-attended webinars in a while, so appreciate that, everybody, for joining us. Today, you know what, before I get in, again, some quick logistics. I can't hear you on this type of webinar, so if you have comments or questions into the chat panel, Q&A panel, and I'll try to get those during the presentation. If not, there's a Q&A section at the end. Also, we are recording today's webinar. It will be up on the website usually in a couple of days. It's not up there immediately, but if you need to share that with other people in your organization or your potential customers, feel free to do that. Let's see, what else? Oh, we're going to send out a follow-up survey, several things on the survey. Let us know how we did. Let us know how we're doing in general. Let us know what other topics you'd like to see. For those of you who don't know this, we have over 170 recordings of different webinars up on the website, just about every topic that you can imagine. Feel free to take a look at those. You know what, before I go too much farther, I want to show you where you can find those. So if you go to the InduSoft.com website, go here under Support, Video Libraries, Webinars, you're going to find those webinars in chronological order here, based, with a little bit of text and the thumbnails, and then categorically organized over here on the right. Give you an example. You can see for drivers, we've got 22 different driver webinars that we do every once in a while up there. So take a look at those. And if you didn't know, if you're new to InduSoft and or the website, you can go here and get our online training videos. There's 40 different training videos up there covering every aspect of the software. And we plan to update these in the relatively near future, but they're still very relevant, and we get a lot of feedback on these, so really appreciate your using those. Let me move this out of the way. So today I'm going to cover new features of Service Pack 2 and different updates, where you can find the release notes, and I'm not going to cover everything today, what's in this release. Just way too much information, and so I'm going to cover a majority of the higher level things, and where can you download this, where can you get at it? So onward and upward here. So one of the things that we've done for this Service Pack 2 is made the mobile access performance when you change screens a whole lot faster. So when you go into the mobile access configuration, you're going to see here under global settings a couple of new features. You know what, let me just open the development environment and show you this. So if I pull this on screen here, and sorry, here we go. I got too many things off on my other monitor here, and I couldn't quite find where the development environment was. So this is a project that I had set up to do a few little tests this morning just to make sure I knew where things were. And what I wanted to point out to you is when you do mobile access, whoops, let me pull this back into play here. When you do mobile access, here under graphics, here under thin clients, under mobile access, now you have to go into this mobile access setup typically just once, and really most often you don't even need to do anything in here. If you just close it and save it, really what it's doing is setting up your project to, if you go here under local management and take a look at the tasks, it's set up the mobile access to automatically start when you start your project. But in this case, to get at some of the new speed-related features, we're enabling hide for all screens in the browser, and then you have a maximum number. So those are a couple of new fields associated with mobile access. And if I go back to the slide here, oops, I actually skipped ahead a few, apologize. Let's go back. Here we go. So those are a couple of new fields. And this new hide screen feature allows for faster switching among screens. Basically, it's caching those screens, and after you first open it, successive opens of those screens will be really, really fast. So lots of improvement there, and we are continuing to improve that for now and in the future. Just as a reminder, so now that we're talking about mobile access, for those of you who have seen the InduSoft intro, InduSoft PowerPoint, you'll notice that we have kind of three main focus points: the mobility or the scalability, the ability to run on different operating systems, the interoperability or thin clients, which mobile access falls into, and then the interoperability or the communications, the fact that we have so many drivers built in, we can use OPC, we're coming out with different drivers all the time. Not only drivers for PLCs, but drivers for robots, temperature controllers, motion, things of that nature. And I'm gonna highlight a couple of those things that we've added into this service pack as we go along here. Another really big thing that we've really focused on in this service pack, and for those of you who are really staying up on the releases of InduSoft Web Studio, we delayed this launch a couple of times, and the major focus was because of cybersecurity. we really wanted to get cybersecurity right. We wanted to really focus on that, and so we've really taken an extensive look at a lot of things in Service Pack 2 related to cybersecurity. So what you're going to find is that now we have encrypted TCP/IP ports using the protocol TLS 1.2. Take a look at that on Google if you don't know what that is. I believe it's, oh geez, I'm not even going to try to make this up because I just don't know. Transport security layer, transport layer security. Anyway, it is kind of the where everybody is going with security. And so what happens here, if I create a brand new project, so I'm going to create a brand new project in InduSoft here, and let's just say no to that. Let's create a brand new project. We'll call it IWS version 8.1 SP2 webinar, and pick a license here. One of the things that you're going to notice that is very different from before is once you pick the resolution for your project, you're going to be immediately prompted with I say immediately, the next thing you'll be prompted with is a security system. We are by default enabling the security system when you open a project now. If you want to, your choice, you can bypass this. It's just a couple of mouse clicks. But we are highly recommending that you enable the security system. And if you do, you just walk through this wizard. The first few steps, you can enable that. We also recommend that you set up a main password. If you don't, it will kind of give you a prompt for that. See here, it says you didn't create a main password. You probably should. Would you like to? In this case, I'm going to say yes. Do you want to continue? No, I'm going to say no to this. I'll set up a main password, and got to make sure that I remember one. You know what? I'm not going to set that up because that way I want to make sure that everybody can open this up if I ever have to post this anywhere. Anyway, you walk through this security system, and you have the choices. If you didn't know this, you have the choices of local only, distributed server or client, and I'd love to draw a box around these two, distributed server and client, because they kind of go together, or LDAP. And LDAP, if you didn't know this, is really interfacing with Microsoft Active Directory. I'm going to come back and take a look at those settings here in a minute. Here's where you configure groups. It's also reminding you should probably set a strong password for the guest user. That's kind of the default user account, so something that you should pay attention to there. At this, I'm going to finish this. So that is kind of the first thing, is that we've enabled security by default. That's something a little bit new. The other thing, let's see, if I go back, oh, I know where I wanted to go here, project communication. So by default, we've enabled the encrypted port 51234. In the past, we've always used port 1234 for TCP/IP communications. And what we've done in this version, we've actually disabled that port by default and enabled the encrypted port 51234. You may be asking, where do we use this? What's going on, and what are those buttons there with the certificate information? So what happens, and I'm not a security expert, and I just want to put in a big disclaimer. I'm going to give you some guidelines here, but you should always follow your IT department's practices, your customer's IT department practices, and don't listen to me for security advice. I'm just trying to give you some guidance here where things are and what's going on. What we have here is when you use this encrypted port, basically you can set up certificates, and certificates are used on both the server side and the client side to basically make use of are we talking to who we think we're talking to. And if you set this up, if I click on self-signed certificate, here under the common name and the machine, you can see that we've got these names in square brackets. Now what that does is that will automatically grab the station, the computer name, and the machine, the machine will be the computer name, and the server name, I believe, will be the name of the program, in this case Studio. And what that will do is that'll create a certificate and allow you to get that on both pieces of equipment and make sure that you're talking to who you think you're talking to. So once you've got that set up, and that is typically, I believe, done on a server side, and I could be wrong on that, but I'll show you kind of the things that happen. So the next thing to pay attention to is, where are those used, and do you need to use those? Well, you don't need to use those. In fact, if you want to use InduSoft just like you have always and in the past, you can uncheck that, just check on port 1234 enabled, and that'll make everything happen as it has in the past. I want to check this encrypted port here, and just to show you a few different things. Now I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint slide, and all messages in this case are encrypted using this TLS 1.2. Certificate management it can help in the decision-making process of which clients can connect to which servers. We make it really easy to configure and powerful. Now, I showed the certificate information here. You don't need to use InduSoft to create these certificates. You can get third-party certificates and manage them remotely. I shouldn't say remotely. I should get them from a third-party source and put them in. You don't have to use our certificate creation. Where is this new port used? So when you're using this, it affects the distributed server and clients, the TCP/IP client worksheets, the remote database spy and logwin, secure viewer, WebThing client. I'm going to show you briefly where you're going to pay attention to those. So the security distributed server, as I mentioned when we were setting up the security system, here if we go into the security system, and I was to set this up as a server, or in this case client, I could use this secure encrypted channel, and when it communicates with the server, automatically get that trust, the certificate from it, and choose to automatically trust it or not. If I don't choose automatically trust, it's going to, as you can imagine, it's going to reject that certificate when it tries to get it from the server. Now here's what happens, and I haven't done this enough to know exactly what's going to show up here, so we'll try this. So when you go into your project folder, if you've tried to get the certificate for, let's say, for security, it will put a folder in your config folder, and it's not here yet. There'll be another folder here called Cert Store, like certificate store. And in the Cert Store, there will be 3 folders: Own, O-W-N, like I own this. There'll be Rejected, and there'll be Trusted. If you set up this setting here and you don't automatically trust the certificate that you get from the server, it will go into the Rejected folder there. And again, where is that at? That is in the Config folder. There'll be a Cert Store folder, and in that it'll be in the Rejected folder. At that point, you can literally just copy it from the actually move it from the Rejected folder and put it in the Trusted folder. You could have just checked this checkbox and would have effectively put it into the Trusted folder automatically, but that's, if you didn't do that, didn't know to do that, you can manually do that, and then it'll understand and establish that trust connection with that server and handle that appropriately. So that's one area. The next area, let's go back in here, the TCP/IP client worksheet. So if you didn't know this, and this is kind of an often underutilized feature in the product, this TCP/IP worksheet, if you didn't know, this can share tag names between 2 InduSoft workstations. Basically, you put in the remote IP address of the remote InduSoft workstation and share tags in between the 2. You can also insert a worksheet here. Oops, sorry. Oh no, that's something. Sorry, that's something different. Anyway, you can go into security here and do the same thing. Automatically trust the server certificate. So that is using that same certificate, that same area. The next place is Remote Database Spy and Logwin. Some really nice tools that we have for troubleshooting is the Database Spy and the output window here. If you're not familiar with this, I highly recommend using this, typically monitoring PLC communications and what's going on there. But if you didn't know, the Database Spy and the output window have remote versions. So if you're going in here under the remote management, you can pull open this Database Spy, and you can see now there's a checkbox there for encrypted channel. Same thing on the Logwin. That'll use those certificates, or that encrypted channel, I should say, that port 51234 as well. And the last place is on the Secure Viewer and the Web Thin Client. So if you go to, if you've ever used Secure Viewer, you have to install that as a thin client, and then there's a configuration that shows up for that, and that allows you to set up that port 51234 and that encrypted channel as well, and very similar on the Web Thin Client as well. Let me see. I don't know exactly where that is. Let's give this a try here. Is that in here? Yeah, there's encrypted channel for the Web Thin Client under the web settings. Let's see. George, thank you for your comment. Yeah, we know that TLS 1.3 is available. There's some interesting data out there for 1.2 versus 1.3. 1.2 is what we chose to use. I don't know if it's more widely accepted or why, but yeah, we know about 1.3 as well. Thanks for letting us know that. Appreciate that. So that is some of the information about the enhanced cybersecurity on this version. Let's see. So moving on here. Another thing related to mobile access. If you're not familiar with mobile access, basically it's the ability to open up a web browser that's HTML5 compliant and view and interact with screens. Sometimes the URL can be a little bit cumbersome, and to try to build that, oops, I apologize, I didn't do that. The URL can be a little cumbersome, bookmarks, things of that nature. So we came up with a couple of mobile apps for both iOS and Android. And when you search for those on, I did a little screenshot here. If you search on the Google Play Store for Android, it's going to show up as mobile access. And if you're searching for it on the Apple Store, you can search for mobile access and Aviva, but I believe it comes up as HMI/SCADA. So that's probably not a great naming convention, but that's unfortunately how that shows up. So when you install it, you get a configuration screen like so, and you're going to see when you first open it up, you're going to see a little triangle here that's kind of a play button, a little gear for setups, and when you go to the setup, you get the ability to put in your IP address of your remote server, whether or not you're using a secure connection, whether or not it auto-rotates, if there's a startup screen, whether or not it's going to log on as a default user, and then you can build in additional parameters here. Now, what are those additional parameters? If you didn't know, and a lot of people don't, because I often show this and a lot of people don't realize this, I'm going to open up the help. And if I go to the thin client mobile access setups, or mobile access here, navigation, how to link directly to a project screen. If you type in the essentially the IP address, the version like IWS 8.1, here's another example here. After index.html, you can actually type a question mark, screen equals, and then the name of the screen. Or if you're using a screen group, you can, and not just a screen, you actually have to add the .sg at the end of it. Let me see, I think I have that in here. Yeah, so startup.sg, I'm using the screen group there. But in addition to that, there's other options for login and your username and password. I'm going to go out on a limb here and make a statement. I'm going to ask that if you need this to verify this with our support group, or maybe we'll do this when we send out the email. What's shown here when you send username and password? You put this question mark, kind of a delimiter, and I don't know enough information as to what to call this officially. But excuse me here. But if you put a pound sign or a hash mark there, I believe this goes through in the body of the response, and therefore it can be encrypted. Don't hold me to that. I don't know if that's an upcoming thing. I believe it's in this version. I don't think it's actually documented well, or if at all, in this version. But I wanted to point out that these extra parameters after the question mark, if you use any of these extra parameters after the question mark, you can put those into this additional parameters setting here. So basically, you just click on that advanced setting and then type those in, and they'll be used. So what happens is the next time you open up this application, it just goes right into the application logged in as you, and that gives you all the information that you need. Question, Cynthia, I don't know if I understand your question. We have a demo. Yeah, you know, maybe I think I know the answer to your question. Is there a demo app that you can view with your phone 24/7? And the answer is yes. Now you brought up, do we need to download the app? Yeah, you do if you want to view it on your phone in an app. But if you just want to view it on the phone, you can open up a browser on your phone and go to this live demo HTML5 here, and you don't need the app to be able to view it. The app is really only available for people who want the convenience and maybe don't want people in their organization to have access to a browser. But as long as the browser is HTML5 compliant, and I found that Firefox is not necessarily HTML5 compliant, so I generally recommend either Internet Explorer 11, Chrome, or Safari, and you can view and interact with this demo. But absolutely, yeah, if you have the app, you can get at that just the same as well. Great question. I'm glad you asked that, because I just wanted to remind people that they don't need the app to be able to get those. The question came in about maintaining the app. The really neat thing is, and I don't know all the technical stuff behind it, but the mobile access app really is just a browser wrapped in an app. So compatibility issues going forward, it's going to be fairly easy for us to maintain. And then you do always have the any browser to open that up if you need to as well. So great question, appreciate that. There is a new remote support tool, and I think there was a little confusion wrapped around this as we put this out in a few different emails when we released Service Pack 2. It turns out, and take a look at this last line here, this is only for the InduSoft support organization. what this is it's very similar to like a team viewer. It allows us to remotely access, it allows our support group to remotely access a customer's computer. So if they're, I apologize, it's, I don't know why my mouse is doing that. It allows the InduSoft Technical Support Group to access a remote computer and remote control it if necessary. So if a customer's having a problem, we need to reproduce something or see exactly what's going on. Basically, let me show you where this is. Let me open up. If you go into the Help tab of InduSoft Web Studio and go under Support, this is a new button here called Remote Support. And when you click on that, it basically generates a support key that you'll see similar to this here, session ID I should say, and that'll allow our remote support group to get into that remote computer if you need help. This is currently not available on other branded versions of InduSoft, and in fact I don't even have a copy of this, so for those of you who I work with quite closely, I can't even use this to access your computer, your customer's computer. It's only in our support group at this point. But it's something we're kind of gently going into, making sure that we get everything right and be able to do this for customers that need some help. And frankly, I appreciate the support group for doing this and being able to take an initiative and get that help to customers. So appreciate that. Oh, thanks for the compliments. Yeah, I didn't quite understand this until a few days ago myself, so appreciate that. We also now have native integration with Schneider Electric OFS, and if you're not familiar with Schneider Electric's OFS, it's OPC factory server. So it's an OPC server essentially, and in the Schneider organization, this is how you can get at essentially the tags inside some of the newer Schneider PLCs. Now I'm not really up on all the conventions and the naming of this, but as I understand it, if you're using, for example, Modbus TCP and you're getting at some of the addresses in the Schneider PLCs, I think that is called unlocated, where if they essentially assign names or tags to the various I/O addresses, that is called located. And using this OFS OPC server, it allows you to get directly at those tags or the located variables in the PLC. I could have that backwards, but I think I've got that right. And as I understand it, with InduSoft 8.1 Service Pack 2, up on the InduSoft website, coming soon, I'm not sure when this is coming, but it is coming soon, I don't think it's up there yet, will be a special download version of OFS to install, and you won't need an OFS license. It'll work directly with InduSoft. So I was told that yesterday, and I added that to the slides. I haven't seen much about that. I could have that wrong, but I believe that there'll be a special download up on the InduSoft website where you won't need to license OFS. It'll connect directly with InduSoft Web Studio. Taking a quick glance at the questions, make sure I haven't missed any. I don't think I have. Some additional updates that are in the product. PanelMate, import enhancements. We are always improving the import tools. If you didn't know this, we have PanelMate. We have the Panel Builder 32 import tool, and we have Factory Talk import tool. We've been using the Factory Talk import tool quite a bit, excuse me, lately, as well as the PanelMate. And we've got some fairly active customers using the PanelMate, and they're requesting enhancements. So we have some new enhancements in this one about the indicators. When you bring those in, the layout of those is a little bit better, especially since the PanelMates are typically smaller resolution screens. And when you enlarge those, we're handling that a bit better. We also, I've seen some things in the development plans that the next couple of versions are going to improve this even better. I know there's some text sizing and some spacing and some different readout things that are on the roadmap to get handled a little bit better as well. Rotate linked pictures for full runtime in development. So let me clear that up. I think we weren't exactly clear on how to state this. So I just want to show how this works. So if you are using a full runtime, meaning not embedded, not embedded Windows, not CE, not Linux, if you're using a runtime that is on Windows Desktop or Server editions, you can, and here's what I've done. I've taken, for example, if I wanted to make a slider, let's say, and I'm going to put a rectangle here on the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to PC demo, the demo that gets included with InduSoft Web Studio. I'm going to go on the web. I'm going to go, I think it's here under resources, and I'm going to change these graphics to some icons here. What I'm going to use is this little pointer icon. I'm going to copy this. Let's see if I can do this here. What's probably the best way to do this? Let me pull this up in a probably with Paint, might even be easier here. I'll pull this little pointer up in Paint. I'll select it all. I'll copy it to the clipboard. Let me move this out of the way here, and then I'll paste it onto this screen. Well, obviously that's too big, and I would probably have resized this appropriately before I decide to bring this into my screen. In fact, let me just do this. Let me just change this to 60 pixels by 60 pixels here. And okay, so now I have this in my project. If I am running this on a Windows platform, a non-embedded platform, I can use the rotate function. In this case, I'm going to, let's say, rotate it 90 degrees. I'll put it over here. Let me make the background of this transparent here. And now I can use this in the runtime, and it will show up rotated in the runtime. So let me see if I can do this actually. I think I can. Yeah, so you can see how it shows up rotated here. If you're using embedded view, CE view, or IoT view, that will not show up rotated. So be a little bit careful if you need cross-platform support. Let's see. So some questions. There was a question, InduSoft Web Studio version 8.1. There was a question about a button not working, login button. If you're having troubles with a product, get a hold of our support group. They'll be best able to help you out and track that. Good question, Matthew. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be rotated in mobile access. I think I've got plenty of time here. Let's go ahead and give that a try. Let's see if I can make that work here. This will also give you a little idea of how to get things to work in mobile access. So let me set that as my startup screen. I have to stop my application. I'm going to publish this as HTML, and I need to go into my mobile access setup. I did that on a test project earlier. In here, I'm just going to close this. I'm not even going to really do anything in here. And if I run this project, and so there's my project. Here's my browser. If I do this, does that show up rotated in mobile access? I think I blew through the security system. I don't remember if I enabled it or not. Oh, it looks like I'm pointing at my old project here. Let's try this. Oh, and I'm still on the website, so that's not even the right address here. Let's try that again. 127, there we go. This should be the right one. And something I did was wrong. So, Matthew, I'll try to answer you offline about that. I don't know what I did here. Let's try that again. Yeah, I don't have, oh, you know what? They've got my firewall set up here, so let's try to turn that off, see if I can get around that. Try one more time, and then I'll abandon this if this doesn't work. No, I don't. I'll try one more time here. Because it's a valid question. I appreciate the question. for some reason, something security. I'm on the VPN. I'm through a bunch of different sources. So yeah, Matthew, thanks. I'll let you know. Yeah, I don't think it's. Somebody said try guest. I tried guest. It's. I don't think. No, I don't need to change IIS. Thank you for all those suggestions. I tried the kind of simple things, but I know that when I'm on this webinar and I've got logged into the VPN and I'm going through so many different networks that I've got a minor struggle on my hands, and I'm not a networking specialist, if you will. So I tried this before I started the webinar, and it worked. So I don't know what I'm doing here in this case. So. Moving on anyway, so you can see that is rotated here, and that was what this feature added. There's also a new exec built-in scripting function. Now this is replacing WinExec, and WinExec is a fairly often used command in the built-in scripting language. So if you go to the built-in scripting language and we go to this appendix here at the end, in fact, probably the best way to do this is list of available functions. I'm just going to do a Control F on my keyboard, EXEC. And of course, everything is execute here. And let's see, where is it? Is it in there? Module activity, here it is, exec. So if you are familiar with the WinExec command, the WinExec command used to be able to essentially open up a command prompt in Windows and execute command line activity. The exec command takes those exact same parameters and does it the same way, but in addition to working on Windows, it can be executed on Linux now as well. And why do we bring that up? So a couple things. Number one, the WinExec, even though it's no longer listed in the scripting, does still exist, will still work. But if you use the exec command in addition to Windows, it will work on Linux in IoT view as well. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up is there are quite a few functions that have yet to be enabled for IoT view. So if you take a look at this list here, so this is in the appendix, list of available functions. You can see that there are a lot of things that are supported in IoT view, but there are still some functions that are not supported in IoT view. One of the biggest ones is email. And we had some questions recently. IoT view on Linux would do everything that the customer wanted except being able to send email. And there are some command line things that you can do in Linux to send email. So they were happy with that, and that got us the ability to do that in their project. A question came up, can we get an object to move along a predetermined path as opposed to based on the value of a variable? No, in this case, the only way that we do position, and let me open up the screen here, is by using this position animation. So if I have an object here and I apply the position, I can make it go horizontally or vertically based on values or tags. What is capable is you can move things horizontally and vertically based on mathematical functions. So you could put, let's say, a sine and a cosine wave here and get things to move in a circular fashion, or if you have direct one-to-one correspondence, you could make them move in a diagonal linear fashion. But if you just wanted to, let's say, and I'm going to draw this, but using an open polygon, if you said, I want this to go like this, and follow that path, the answer is no. I know some other products do that, but you can get this by saying, okay, from value 0 to 25, it goes this way. From 26 to 45, it goes, I mean, you can mathematically do that, but getting that to follow that path is not an animation that we have. Oh, somebody gave me some good feedback here. Let's try this. Let's run this application again, because I think I found this out myself here. So if I run this application again, and instead of clicking on the green arrow button, if I hit enter on my keyboard, will that go into it? I'm not sure if I have to. No, still get the same server error. So I think I've seen that. Appreciate that, because I think I've tried that before myself. Let's go back to the PowerPoint here. Oh, this is another one that's kind of neat, is the ability to copy text from the output window, the cross-reference, and the find function. Now, this is something that was always a little I'll say problematic. So if you have the output window here, and let's say that you get some values in the output window, in the past, you used to be able to select all in here and select the whole thing, but only the whole thing. And now you can actually copy just individual lines or what you need, and then copy that and then paste that into a text editor, let's say, or an email if you need support. The same thing holds true with the cross-reference. So if you've got some cross-reference that you've done, so here under Home, if you've looked up a tag and then done the cross-reference, and that shows up here under this output window tab for cross-reference. Also the find results, if you do a find replace and the results show up down here, you can now copy that and paste that a little bit more cleanly than you could before, a little bit easier that way. So, okay. Also some recent drivers. Now there have been some driver updates since we've come out with Service Pack 2 and or right around the release of Service Pack 2. So I'm not sure which ones of these have made it in, but I believe the ABCIP 11.14 is not in Service Pack 2. Let me double check that. How I can see those versions, if I go into communications here, right click, add remove drivers, ABCIP here. Yeah, the version that's installed is 11.13. The current version that's up on the website is 11.14. Well, let me point out a few things here just to make sure that you understand this, because a lot of people don't understand this. If you go to the InduSoft website, I think I have that in a browser window over here. Let me pull that in here. And you go to the drivers page. So here under Product and Downloads, Drivers, this will show you all of the list of drivers and versions and what we have. I believe that ABCIP or Ethernet IP is off to the second page here, so let me pull that up here. And if I go to the ABCIP, click on this little magnifying glass, you can see that it's 11.14. You can download these and install these, but what I really want to point out is this is something not a lot of people realize about InduSoft drivers. You can actually use these drivers, most of these drivers, back to version 6.1 Service Pack, I would say Service Pack 5. I think it says 4 here, but I think it has to be later than Service Pack 4, but that's more than 10 years old, so most of you are probably later than that. The drivers are independent from the runtime. And a couple of things that will help you understand that. When I go to help, the driver manuals are not under the product help. They're actually in their own section here, the drivers. Because you can install and use newer drivers with older versions of product or older drivers with newer versions of product, they are independent. And that way, if you, let's say a problem was found and we fixed it in a driver, you don't have to wait for an update to the whole product to get a new version of the driver. We can update those and put those up on the website, and you can install those separately from the product. So that's a real kind of an advantage to this. Taking a look at some of the questions offline. Reminder: if you have questions, put those into the chat panel or the Q&A panel. There's a couple questions that I haven't answered. What's the best way to upgrade if you're using, for example, 8.1 Service Pack 0 no patch? What's the best way to upgrade? So on my next slide here, actually I'm going to skip a slide here. So how can you get this? You can download from InduSoft.com. There's a simple registration and login, or you can ask us to send you the USB installation media. But however you choose to install it, a couple things to pay attention to. First of all, don't forget that you can have multiple versions installed simultaneously. So for example, you can have 6.1, 7.0, 7.1, 8.0, or 8.1 all installed simultaneously. You can't run them simultaneously, but they can be installed on your computer simultaneously. Now the question came in, what if you had a previous service pack or patch? So for example, the question was 8.1 with no service packs, no patches. What's the best way? So as long as you don't need that version anymore, if you want to go up to the latest version, you can download and install Service Pack 2, and it will update your 8.1 Service Pack 0, Patch 0 to be Service Pack 2. I highly recommend making a backup of your applications first, zip those up. That's pretty easy to do. But as long as you're in that same version, and I've showed some of these versions that go back more than 10 years, if you are licensed for 8.1 already, Service Pack 2 will not even ask you for a license because you're in that 8.1 version family, and it will use your license that you have existing. If you're in an 8.0 family or prior and you try to upgrade to this, you're going to need to purchase a new license, and there's an upgrade price for that. Contact your InduSoft representative for that. Now let me go back a slide here. Hopefully that answered your question. Let me go back. Something about you need to pay attention to is the release notes. The release notes get installed with the service pack, and you can find those in a couple of different ways. You can go to all programs, for example, go to where this is installed, and you can get at the release notes here. They're in XML format, so if you open them up in this way, now it just so happens on my computer that XML, I think, is associated with Notepad. In this case, it's WordPad, and the XML is not formatted very readable. I recommend either going to where they are on your hard drive and opening them up with a browser, or you can go to the InduSoft website and you can read them before you install the product. So for example, if I'm going to do this off screen here, if you go to the documentation page on the InduSoft.com website, and when that loads up here, if you go to click here to view the release notes, these are the current ones. We always put the current ones here. You can see it in a little bit more readable format. That XML, especially if you open it up with a browser like I did in this case. These issues are issues that we fixed. You can see this type column, and then down here, requirements. Requirements are typically features or minor type features that we've added. You can see there's quite a few here, and I've only kind of dedicated the top 6 or 7 on this webinar, but you can see there's quite a few modifications and updates that we've done on this, so take a look at that. If you weren't aware of that, you can get that right off of our website before you install. You make that decision to help you make that decision if you want to install or not. I believe that's most of the content that I had for today. So there were a few support-like questions that came in during the presentation. If you have the need for support, I'd like to ask you to contact our support group. But all the questions that came in, real good questions today. Question, do we have any drivers for Eurotherm controls? I don't know all the different drivers off the top of my head, but this brings up a good point here. You can go under drivers, and you can click under manufacturer. I know we have some Eurotherm drivers. I don't know what the name of the driver is called. Apparently it's not showing up here. I could do one more quick search here. If I right-click, insert EUR. I don't know what the Eurotherm protocol is called. If you know what that is, maybe add on to your question there, and I'll see if I can answer you there, Mike. I'm 90% sure we've got Eurotherm drivers. I just don't know the name of the driver. I haven't used it. Thank you for the compliments. Any other questions? Let's see. Is there a what's new section for the drivers? We tend to put out on our corporate blog when we release drivers where those are at. So probably the best way to find that is you go to InduSoft.com. Here under Marketing, Corporate Blog. And we keep this updated fairly regularly. Updated driver, for example. And you can see these if you subscribe to this. I think there's an RSS feed you can get for this, but different features in here as well as driver announcements come up here in the blog. So that's probably a really good idea. It'd be nice to have kind of a recent updates for the driver list. That might be another way to do that. Let's see, another question coming in. The question came in about certificates and passing that off to the customer. How does the customer have the ability to set up his or her own certificate for their specific computer? Basically, what you could do is if you wanted to clear out the certificates that you were using during development, you could do that. And if you wanted to, when you set up, and I don't have, by the way, these are grayed out because my project is currently running. Let me go ahead and stop this. And if I go back into project communications here, if you wanted to set that up with security at your customer site, you could, depending on the various options that you're using, for example, the security system here, if you went in and said automatically trust the server certificate, if you deleted those out of that folder, and again, I'll remind you where that was. That is in your project folder, so that today's here under config. There it is, search store. So something I did cause that to show up. These are ones that I own, and then if I had tried to connect to a server and it sent me, there would be a rejected and or a trusted folder here. What you could do is go into those, probably the trusted folder, delete those certificates, and then have, when you get on site at your customer's facility, have it automatically trust those server certificates, and it will regenerate those certificates. So doing that at your customer's location. Now they don't have to. That'll transfer along with the project. But if you needed to clear those out for whatever reason, you could do that. Question, how far are we planning to take Linux? We are working on it and adding features into it all of the time. I've seen the long-term roadmaps, and Linux is definitely on the long-term roadmap. So if you have specific questions, get a hold of us, and we can maybe set up a webinar with you and work with you if you need to know some certain features. Yeah, okay, answered that question. Language translation is not enabled for mobile access. I'm not sure if or if that's coming soon. I know it's on our roadmap to do, and I'm pretty sure that I've seen it in the development team's queue, and I think they're working on it. I think they're preparing for it. I could, Ken, let me take a look for you and see if that's when that is planning on coming. You can either get a hold of me, send me an email, and remind me if I don't answer you back. Another question, do we have any panel builder or factory talk projects that you can share for us to import to demo? I don't. I've actually asked for a couple of these. If you have a customer that has factory talk and maybe you're willing to work with them, they're willing to work with you, one of the things they can do is export their demo application for factory talk, because I'm pretty sure that comes in darn near 100%. So that would be a good opportunity if you've got that capability. I don't have any of those, and I've asked for those. So do we have a tool to import RSView 32? So no, we did Panel Builder 32, we skipped over RSView 32, and we did Factory Talk. But as I understand it, you can use the Rockwell tools to take an RSView 32 application, bring it into Factory Talk, and then use Factory Talk to export it. And as I understand it, that works. And that'll get you in a long way towards doing that. So let's see some other questions. Bill, thank you very much for your comments. What procedure do you need to follow to become a certified system integrator? Really nice thing up on the website here. Let's take a look at, if you just go to partners, certified system integrators, there is a list of benefits on how you become, or what you get when you become a certified system integrator. And here's where you can request certified system integrator status. And basically, if you click on that, you get this nice little form, real simple to fill out, and that'll come to us. And then you have to take an online test, and I'll tell you, it's not a real simple test. We try to prove that you're competent in using the product before we put you up on the website and make you available to the general public. So that is how you can become an InduSoft certified system integrator. Thank you for asking about that. Whoa, all kinds of questions here. Modbus driver and have different Modbus slave that require different baud rates. COM port. Okay, so good question, and it brings up some licensing questions. So the question came in, let's say that you have, and this is not a Service Pack 2, but just a good question to pay attention to. Let's say that you've added a driver. Let's say it's a Modbus serial driver, and that Modbus serial driver, let's say, has some devices that you connect to it, and I go in here to settings, and it's got a certain baud rate or a COM port that it's set up, but then you have other Modbus devices that have different settings that'll be different from this particular driver. Now, one of the things that we did in version 8.1 is we simplified our licensing. And for drivers, what that means is you're no longer limited to the number of drivers that you can include in a project. Now, how does that help you in this case? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop InduSoft Web Studio. I'm going to go to where my InduSoft installation is, and if I go here and I go into the drivers. Now, the drivers typically consist of 3 or 4 files. For Modbus, which is MODBU, there's 4 files. The DLL, which is the driver, the INI, which is the settings, the messages for error messages, and the driver manual. If you copy those files and keep them in this same folder and make a change, keep them as 5 characters, and instead of the last character being a U, in this case, make it like MODBA, MODB. So you'd make all 3 of these files MODBA. If you needed a 3rd driver, you'd make it MODBB. And what that'll do is when you, in fact, let me just do it here. If I copy these 3 files, paste them, I get copies of these. So let me change the names. MODBB. And see if I can talk while I'm doing this. Because in version 8.1 you're no longer limited to the number of drivers that you can have in your project, at least not license limited. It might be hardware limited based on the amount of memory and number of ports and things of that nature. But because 8.1 no longer has that limitation, now what you can do when you open up InduSoft Web Studio and we go into the drivers section here. So I already had that MODBU driver installed. If I go back to my list now, I should have MODB. So there's MODB. Did I accidentally rename MODB? I might have accidentally renamed the wrong one. Oh no, it's down here. Sorry, MODBU. So now I have another one that's MODBB in this case. Don't use numbers at the end. I believe they have to be letters. And I believe there's a really nice blog post on that. So now you can have this one with certain settings. In this case, it's going to be baud rate 9600. And then this one, if we go there, we can change that to a different baud rate, 19.2. So that's how you would keep those separate. And that works the same for Ethernet-based drivers as well, especially if you need different block sizes. I know I tried to connect to some of the Schneider pack drives, and it needed a smaller block size to be able to communicate, and I was able to do it that way. So let's see, any other questions? I don't see any other new questions in. There's a question about including .NET 4.0 or 4.5 on the project screen. Right now it only supports up to 3.5. I haven't seen that on the roadmap, but I haven't been looking. I can't say for that. So to the person who put that in as a question, shoot that off to info@indusoft.com, and we'll have somebody try to wrangle you an answer. So again, that's info@indusoft.com. Appreciate the question. I just don't happen to know. I don't have all of the roadmap memorized for that. So okay, wow, ton of questions, great responses, great feedback. Really appreciate it. Thank you everybody for taking the time, and we really appreciate it. Things are going well, growing here. I think we're going to have another really good year as the end of the year approaches here. So thanks to all of you who are using, interested in, purchasing, specifying, selling InduSoft Web Studio. So thank you very much. And I don't see any other new questions coming in, so I'm going to we're over the hour, right at the top of the hour. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Everybody have safe travels if you're going somewhere, and try to stay warm, and have a great day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.